I'm meeting today with Victoria and Jamie from Merge NZ, who promote and educate New Zealand Sign Language. I'm interested in learning more about New Zealand Sign. We are always, as leaders, communicating something with our body as well as with our words. What if the language we spoke was physical and visual? Would we be more receptive to the body language of others? And how would this affect the way that we interacted? I was struck by what an elegant and beautiful language New Zealand Sign is, and how I felt slightly disabled not being able to use my body to speak it. Jamie and Victoria are very much everyday leaders. Within seconds of meeting them, I could feel their warmth, inclusiveness, and passion for their language.
That's awesome. Just to clarify, you may wonder why I don't maintain eye contact with you, and that's obviously because I'll be watching the interpreter. So you speak as usual as you did with Jamie, but I will be accessing the information through the interpreter, and then when I give my responses I'll be looking between Laura and yourself.
Okay.
So yeah, obviously the interpreter sits next to the hearing person, not next to me.
Yes.
If that makes sense. If the interpreter's on this other side, we'd be playing a tennis match.
Yes.
We'd be following the ball backward and forward. So
yes.
The setup is absolutely perfect.
Okay, good. And thank you for clarifying, because this is actually a new experience for me. So that's really great that you've kind of clarified that. That's really good.
No problems. Just thought I'd let you know that information, just so you're not thinking, oh, this is a bit strange, but you're doing absolutely perfectly by maintaining eye contact with me, with Victoria.
Awesome, great. Victoria, it would be really great if you could, to start with, just tell me a little bit about your story. You've obviously got, I was reading in your bio that you've got a real passion for New Zealand Sign and the language, and perhaps you could tell me sort of a little bit about your career and how you've ended up developing Merge, and sort of your background and where you've come from.
Okay, so sign language is my first language, and have used that ever since I was young. So then I moved to New Zealand, and there were a lot of issues for me. For example, when I was at school, the teachers here were not fluent in sign language.
Okay, yeah.
And when I would converse with adults, there were really a small number of adults that I could converse with as well. Then when I went to university, there were very few sign language interpreters. So all of my life, I've experienced these types of issues. So that's how things have been. Sorry, you wanted to say, Ellie?
So interesting. So
I know, it's like, how much information can I squeeze into this history?
yes. I'm just really curious, so in those situations, were you just relying on being able to lip read or write things down, or how did you actually communicate at school and at university?
Well, I've used sign language from day one. That's my language.
But I mean, as far as the teachers, if they couldn't understand you, or how did you...
I taught them sign language.
Okay, great.
So that they could converse with me fluently.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant.
That's vital.
Yes.
This is my language. It's a visual language.
Yes.
I must have this type of communication, with my teachers. So if we kind of reverse the situation, often I might be in a situation where hearing people would be talking, to me. But for me, it was working in the opposite, where I was signing to these teachers, and it really did have an impact on their level of fluency. It's amazing the impact that a bit of sign language vocab could have.
Yes, that's fabulous. That you did just go out and really pushed and demand, which I think is really fabulous and necessary. Yeah. So I've interrupted your story, and I'm sorry. So.
No, that's absolutely fine. I think it's really important to approach teaching in a positive way,
yes.
so that they feel open-minded toward that. Let's just say if you're in a cafe and I ask for a cup of tea, you can kind of gauge what I'm trying to say. So if you're reinforcing that with a positive sign afterward, and then you just build from there. And of course using gesturing as well at varying menus, then hearing people, they're very quick learners. And they actually become quite surprised when they're able to respond back in sign language.
Yes.
And, because they found that power from within themselves, they just didn't realise that they could do it and that the sign language was easy.
So as a language, do you feel it's a language that is fairly easy to pick up?
So we have two different groups of people. Those who already know sign language and they become, say, sign language tutors, qualified tutors, and it's this team that offers the training. And then we have the group of students, so the learners of our language, and they all vary. It may depend on their age, it may depend if they have another language, for example, Te Reo Māori, French, or another spoken language. Then that would determine how quickly they may pick up the language. So if they have some previous knowledge around languages, the structure, the grammatical rules, then I would say the learning would be much quicker. Our younger generations seem to be sponges and just learn the language very quickly. For our older group of learners, it might take a little bit longer. I would say that practice is key, because the more that you practice, the better your skill becomes. And of course, as we know, if you don't use a language, then you lose it.
Yes, definitely. So if we go back to sort of talking about your career, sort of how did you sort of progress on to developing Merge?
Well, I really saw that there was a huge gap in New Zealand. There was no organisation that was really taking that initiative to offer training courses, be it online or face-to-face learning. And for example, thank you. In the entertainment area, any live performances, it really wasn't kind of visible. It was almost like it was underground, that it was just the deaf community that was using the language. So really for us, it was to tap into that and, and to showcase this to the world. It's a beautiful language, and it's a language to be embraced by our community, by all of our communities, because there are so many benefits to using sign language. I'm very passionate, which is why I'm involved. And of course, Jamie is the other half of our organisation, so we have that shared vision. And that really motivated us just to, to get going with it. It's been a year, and there have been so many things that have happened, and you just realise that there are so many other gaps and how much more work there is to do. So it really has taken off.
Fantastic. Do you think that, so just picking up from what you've said, do you feel that New Zealand is perhaps behind other countries in its promotion of New Zealand Sign? And you were talking about sort of the theatre and having someone there to sign or providing resources for the deaf community. Do you feel that New Zealand is sort of behind perhaps other countries in its...
difficult to sum that up in one answer.
Yeah.
Because some countries, say, may be more advanced in deaf education. And whereas New Zealand, there's a lot of work in this area to be done. New Zealand, however, have much better legislation.
Yes.
And so the government's support for the development of sign language is greater than, say, other countries.
Okay.
Employment, it covers off areas of employment, and so it really does depend country to country, the pros and cons. But watch this space, watch New Zealand. because we are a more compact country, we're much smaller. It means that we work together. And of course, amongst our own, there is that politics that still takes place. But I think that we are actually seen as world leaders.
Okay, fantastic. That's good. That's very good.